stick their primary function and keep school uniforms generic and affordable. An investigation into anti-competitive behaviour at schools concluded early last year revealed that a number of schools had exclusive contracts with single suppliers. These contracts did not go through a competitive and transparent bidding process. A little bit earlier on, we spoke to Commissioner at the Competition Commission, Tembinkosi Bonakele.
Actually, a parent from the Western Cape who complained to us that she had no choice but to buy from one particular supplier. So the school didn't have alternative suppliers, and this particular supplier was too expensive for her. She brought this to our attention, and subsequently we also got a lot of other parents. Once they heard about the story, once it was publicized, we then got an influx of complaints from parents.
So then the issue of pricing, was it competitive enough, or was it regard to the suppliers?
See, the problem is that some schools have traditionally had a relationship with a particular supplier, and they would keep this relationship for generations. And that supplier then would have an opportunity to exploit parents who send kids to that school by charging whatever price, knowing that they have no alternative. They have to source uniform from that single supplier. That is a major problem we have. Even where there are shops that are within premises of the school, we're saying that there's no reason to restrict other shops in town from selling the same uniform.
Now, with regards to the school badge, does it contribute to the price of the uniform itself? And is the price regulated in terms of how should the whole package of the school uniform be?
So the school uniform is determined by parents. So that's the first responsibility of parents. It's determined by parents as part of the school governing body. So they would be there, the teachers would be there, and they together will determine the uniform. Now, how unique the uniform is, sometimes is important for certain schools, but you've got to remember the uniqueness can also come at a price. So if you have got complicated logos that have to be part of the uniform, if you prescribe a uniform that cannot be produced by everybody, in other words, you must have only one factory, and even that factory has to be configured in order to produce your school blazer, then that blazer is going to be very expensive. So the responsibility of parents starts with making a determination of what uniform. Once you've made that, you also should think about where are you going to source it from. Do you source it from one person, or do you source it from more than one person? Because all those factors will have a determination on the price. If your socks look too complicated than your usual generic white or black socks, you must know they will come at a price.
Well, what did you discover regarding the monopolization of supply of school uniforms?
Well, there are a few suppliers in terms of factories. There are also a few importers. The problem, the major problem, is the exclusivity that the few suppliers have over certain schools. And there are schools that are quite big, where you could possibly have more than one supplier of uniform, but by choice they've decided to only go for one. The other problem related to this is, when do you check the market? So if you have this supplier that has been supplying your school with uniform for 30 years, and you've never checked the market, the likelihood is that you are a victim as parents.
Okay, so now what is the way forward?
We have certain schools and suppliers that we have investigated and we are prosecuting. That case is currently before the tribunal now. But as you would appreciate, there are too many schools, so we can't possibly prosecute all of them. So we have to set examples. We also have a circular that has been issued by the Minister of Basic Education that contains guidelines. So we've provided guidelines on how schools should procure uniform. So the important thing is that the schools must have access to these guidelines and they must use them.
Right. Just before you go, tell us about collusion in the publishing industry. Are you also looking into that?
Yes. Sometime last year we found that there is an extensive cartel covering publication publishers of all books. This is more than 91 firms involved in this, and that includes the supply of school books to provincial governments as well as to the national government. This covers things like study aids. It's a collusion on the price of books, but it's also collusion that seeks to prevent online publishers. So established publishers recognize that the new market of online is going to have a huge impact on the school publishing, on school books, and they sought to prevent that.
Okay.